before the night is over, one of them will hand Jesus over for 30 pieces of silver. Another will deny he ever knew Jesus 3 times before the rooster has finished crowing. And the rest will scatter into the darkness. And Jesus knows all of this. And he picks up the towel. We are told that when Jesus announces the betrayal, he is deeply troubled. That Greek word literally means a groaning from the guts, the kind of anguish that has nowhere to go. It's the same word that was used when Jesus arrived at the tomb of Lazarus, and the grief of the world presses in on him from every side. And so our scene tonight is not a serene one, and Jesus isn't somehow detached. He knows what Judas is about to do, and it breaks something within him. And then he kneels at Judas's feet and washes them clean. What was Judas thinking in that moment, do you think? The other disciples didn't know what he was planning. As far as Jesus could tell, Jesus didn't know either, at least at that point of the foot washing. So when Jesus rose from the supper and removed his outer robe and wrapped the towel around his waist, Judas would have had no reason to think that this was anything other than what it appeared, an act of inexplicable, humbling service. And who knows, maybe in that moment something lurched inside of Judas. Maybe the hands that had healed the sick and blessed the children and broken bread for thousands, those hands that now cupped his foot and lifted it gently into the basin, maybe those hands made the coins in his pockets feel suddenly very heavy. Maybe some doubt swept through him. What am I doing? This man loves me. This man is washing my feet. Or maybe it went another way entirely. Maybe the washing only hardened what was already forming within him. Maybe he looked down at Jesus kneeling and serving and giving himself away again and felt something, not quite contempt, but maybe something close to it. This is the one who was supposed to change everything. This is the Messiah, but he will not pick up a sword. He meets power with a towel. He talks about a kingdom, but it looks nothing like any kingdom that really matters in this world. And so maybe for Judas, the washing was not a moment of doubt, but just of confirmation, one final proof that Jesus would never be who Judas needed him to be if he didn't force the issue himself. We simply don't know. We're left to wonder, but it's worth wondering. Wondering what was behind Judas's eyes while Jesus washed his feet. All we know, of course, is that Jesus did it, knowing everything, groaning with the weight of it, and kneeling anyway. Jesus is extending, at the cost of everything, genuine mercy to the very one who will spend that mercy before the morning is over. The love we see in this passage we read is real. But so is the betrayal. But we learn that this is the kind of love that cannot be broken. I think this is what John means when he says that Jesus loved them to the end. Not until the end of the supper, not until the end of that night, not until the end of his last breath on the cross, but to the uttermost end, to the farthest reach of what love can do and what love will cost. Even here, that love says, yes. Yes, even you, Judas. I think Peter's a different case. You shall never wash my feet, he says. And it kind of sounds on the surface a little like humility, like reverence. But I wonder if it is. I mean, think about what Peter must have been feeling as he watched Jesus move around the room. Each time Jesus knelt, Peter would have felt that moment drawing closer, like his turn was coming, and something in him was building, not against Jesus, but against this very act that Jesus was doing, against the wrongness of it, the sheer impropriety of it. This is not the proper order of things. You don't let a teacher wash your feet. You don't let the one you've confessed as Lord do the work of a servant. And Peter loved Jesus fiercely and proudly. He had left everything. He had left his nets, his livelihood, his ordinary life to follow this man. He had stood up and declared what the others couldn't quite bring themselves to say. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And he had meant it. And it meant everything to him. And part of what it meant was that Jesus was worthy of his loyalty, worthy of his devotion, worthy of his protection, worthy of his life. And so when Jesus knelt before him, Peter didn't experience it as grace. He experienced it as an affront, not to himself, but to Jesus. Lord, you shouldn't be doing this. This diminishes you. I will not be the one who allows it. You will never wash my feet. It's the kind of love that expresses itself in protection. The kind of love that wants to preserve the beloved from anything that looks like weakness or loss. Peter's refusal was in its own way an act of love. But it wasn't a love that had yet learned what kind of love Jesus was asking for. And Jesus won't let him refuse. Unless I wash your feet, you have no part of me. I wonder how that hit Peter in that moment. Perhaps he got very still. It probably wasn't the response that he expected. Jesus certainly had gotten responses from Jesus plenty of times, but this wasn't a gentle rebuke like usual. And it wasn't a patient explanation of how he had gotten it wrong again. He didn't expect to be told that his refusal, his protective and devoted and well-intentional refusal, was costing him something essential. But to hold himself back from receiving was to hold himself back from belonging. Hear that again. To hold himself back from receiving was to hold himself back from belonging. To be in relationship with Jesus, you cannot only follow and serve and give. You also have to learn to receive. To let love come to you in a form that you didn't choose and that you can't control. To allow yourself to need what is being offered. Peter can give everything, but he's still learning how to receive. And then there's everyone else in the room, and we don't know what they said or if they said anything at all. This text just gives us Judas's betrayal and Peter's protest, and then surrounding both of them, this quiet presence of the others. No dramatic betrayals, no proud resistance. They're just watching. Maybe they're being a bit too passive, in fact. Maybe they're uncertain about how they feel about it all or not quite knowing what to do next. Thankfully, Jesus tells them. After Judas goes out into the night, that's when Jesus gives the mandatum. That's how this Maundy Thursday came by its name. This new commandment, love one another as I have loved you. We've just seen what that means. It means loving across betrayal. It means stooping when you have every reason to stand. But it means extending to others the same love that has been extended to you freely and without condition. And so as we gather at this table, as we hear this story on this night, will you let Jesus love you in that way? And will you dare to love others the same? Now, we're not going to be reenacting the foot washing this evening, but in a few moments we will come to the table. We will come the way the disciples came to that upper room. A mixed company of the faithful and the frightened and the somewhere in between. And perhaps some of you come like Judas. Maybe not with the betrayal and the conspiracies, but perhaps you come to the table with a heavy heart because of things that you have done or that you have left undone. The secrets that no one else knows. But of course Jesus does. And knowing you fully and completely, he lifts the cup and says, "This is my blood poured out for you for the forgiveness of sins." Or maybe you're like Peter, coming to the table full of spiritual pride masquerading as humility. We can have all the right commitments, but can't imagine becoming less so that others might become more. Or perhaps we bring a resistance that reveals some deep unspoken sense that we don't quite deserve to be here. That accepting this love simply and without qualification just feels like too much. So we would rather serve than to be served, and we would rather give than receive, and we'd rather do something useful than just hold still and let grace come to us. And so Jesus takes bread and breaks it and says, "This is my body given for you." You don't have to earn it, and you don't have to be worthy of it. But neither can you hold what is given to you and hold on to your spiritual pride at the same time. It must be broken and given to you. And likely some of us have come to the table out of habit, neither betraying nor resisting. Present, but maybe not fully so. Going through the motions, but not fully absorbing the moments. Maybe it's cynicism or boredom or malaise, but I think those often just mask the spiritual dryness and hardness. The good news tonight is that everyone is welcome here. The same Jesus who knelt at the feet of Judas, who insisted on washing the feet of Peter, who quietly served all of those unnamed disciples who simply held still. That Jesus meets us here with bread, with a cup, and with a love that goes with us to the very end. This is the good news. Thanks be to God. Amen.